It's looking like Texas might have gone woke because of all states, Texas, run by Governor Greg Abbott, who did not stop this, has passed a version of the Crown Act. And I did not expect that to happen. There should be no reason why that's surprising. It's one of the most reasonable, common sense sorts of pieces of legislation that you can imagine. It's passed in many states over the past few years. But Texas, of all places, I am actually pretty surprised. It actually did very well in terms of the vote. In the Senate, 29-1, the House 143-5. So they were able to find a few people who think that you should be legally allowed to discriminate against people based on their hair. And by the way, if you're not familiar with this, although we have talked about it on the show before, the Crown Act stands for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. It's designed to protect against discrimination, particularly in the workplace, based on hair texture, protective hairstyles, all of that sort of stuff, of which there has been a lot. And in fact, we can bring up a map where you can see some of the progress in passing versions of the Crown Act. And you can see 20 different states have passed it. There's some others where it's potentially pending right now, others where it hasn't even been filed. We'd love to see some progress in there, but you can see a number of states where it is now passed. And so Texas joins California and New York. How often do you hear that sort of thing? But anyway, the fact that most of the Republicans supported, the fact that Greg Abbott didn't block it, with how focused they've all been on not seeming to be woke, I'm actually surprised. What do you think?
I am also surprised, and yet I feel like the other shoe's gonna drop, and pretty soon this act is going to be used to defend white chicks wearing cornrows from discrimination, or just someone being like, why are you wearing cornrows? And then that's it. And then they're gonna have a whole lawsuit. And then Alec is gonna get involved. And then they're gonna, and the Supreme Court's gonna be ruling on white dreads. And then that's just, I feel like that's where we are. That's where we are. But yes, no, it is on its face a good thing. A lot of work goes into pieces of legislation like this. Something that we think is so basic, to not discriminate against someone because of their hair. No, that's not only until recently. This year we passed the Pump Act, the right to go pump during work hours if you're a breastfeeding parent. That's so we will see. I hope this at least gives some employees and workers and students a leg to stand on if and when they are being discriminated against.
Yeah, and I think the reason I guess I would be worried that this would fall into the rubric of oh God, Texas has gone Bud Light is not the actual scholarly original definition of what woke is supposed to encapsulate, but just the basic idea of, hey, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing if over the course of your life, you were to think about things you haven't thought about and consider the experiences of other people. Wouldn't that be great? And we have to fight to get people to accept that that's a good thing. But there's probably plenty of white people who either don't realize that this happens, that people experience discrimination in their workplace, in schools, in all sorts of places, or that they might have done it themselves and haven't questioned it. And maybe this sort of thing helps to push people to question, whether they have done things without realizing it that are discriminatory, to understand and respect the life experiences of people who aren't exactly like them. It's so reasonable. It should be the bare minimum of how you live your life. But unfortunately, there's a ton of pushback, and it literally requires legislation to get people to just naturally evolve to the bare minimum degree. So anyway.
I would like to quote the song "If I Only Had a Brain" from The Wizard of Oz. I could think of things I'd never thunk before, and then I'd sit and think some more. So that is what your commentary reminded me of. This is the right wing in America. If they only had a brain, think of all the things you could think. Amazing.
Yeah, and it should be the most obvious thing. As with all of these things, there's so much that is so reasonable that they would say, no, we don't have to do that. You don't need representation in movies. Why is that not important? But that they obviously understand because when they feel they've lost the barest minimum amount of it, it breaks their entire reality. It's all this stuff that they definitely understand when it is just about them, but they don't understand that you could apply that to other people too.
Yep.
Like if they experienced discrimination based on their hair, it would be the most important issue that had ever happened. And yet that can't generalize.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.